r/NoSleep. I work at an ice rink. I saw something that chilled me to the bone. I know I should be grateful for a chill job at an ice rink, especially as we gear up for a scorching summer. I'm thinking about quitting though. I'm too creeped out to go back there. I needed a summer job, and I was a little surprised by the lack of competition for a gig at the local rink. My first day was right after the interview. The pay wasn't great, but the expectations weren't bad either. Help customers, keep the place clean, restock the restrooms, that sort of work. The most important task was a team effort. Keep the rink temperature below freezing at all times. That made sense. It's an ice rink, not a swimming pool. At regular intervals, I'd check the thermostat to make sure the rink remained between 19 and 29 degrees. Doing so ensured that the main room was always nice and chilly, my own frosty oasis in the middle of town. My boss was the face of the business, so he was usually up front serving guests or back in his office. Whenever he came out, he'd check the rink's temperature, even if I had just checked it myself. One day, I clocked in a few minutes late and found the boss hustling toward the thermostat. He seemed startled when he noticed me.
Seen anybody around here yet?
He asked. I checked the clock to see that we were still nearly an hour away from opening. Not yet, I said.
Good.
He smiled. Then he asked me to help set up a new game in the arcade. It was a massive cabinet, big screen, 2-seater bench, huge speakers. The delivery men rolled it in and moved it into place, so now it was time to plug it in and see how it ran. I plugged in the power cord and fired up the cabinet. The screen flickered, the speakers roared to life, and then the whole place went dark. I looked out into the main room to see the boss sprinting for the breaker box. The girl at the concession counter dropped what she was doing and disappeared into the kitchen. I left the arcade to apologize for the mishap, and then I noticed the smell. It was like someone left meat out and went on vacation. The stench was heavy and sickening, so strong I could taste it. I figured it must have come from the kitchen. My boss was in the back, sweating bullets at the breaker box.
The wiring's screwy,
he said when he saw me.
One thing goes wrong and the whole place loses power.
He snapped a few switches back into place and closed the box. Behind us, machines hummed again. He sighed and wiped the sweat from his forehead.
It's just an old building, that's all,
he said. He checked the thermostat and stayed by the rink until it was time to open. The smell had mostly dissipated by the time customers started filtering in, but it was hard to forget. It was still in my clothes when I went home. A few days later, the boss had to run errands, leaving me and the concession girl to hold the fort down. Everything seemed fine at first, but then a group of kids approached me from the arcade. They said the new cabinet wasn't working right. The screen kept freezing, and they couldn't get their quarters back. My boss had briefly showed me how to troubleshoot these machines, so I did what I could to diagnose the problem. It took longer than I'd like to admit. I was hesitant to unplug the game and restart it, but I tried everything I could to get the game working again. If I had to refund a few quarters, I imagined the boss wouldn't mind. At some point, I realized I was sweating. I dressed warm for work since the main room stays in the mid-50s, but I suddenly felt too hot. I told the kids I'd be right back and tried not to look conspicuous as I made my way to the rink thermostat. 30 degrees, still below freezing. I returned to the arcade to realize that it was the air conditioner that was struggling. It was blazing hot outside, and our AC was fighting hard to keep the room cool. I finally got the game up and running, then ran by the concession counter for lunch. The late afternoon rush kicked in, and I was on my feet for hours. Without the boss up front, I was renting out skates, checking the restrooms, and doing my best to keep the new arcade game running. I didn't get a moment to catch my breath until closing time. I shut off the lights and flipped the front door sign from open to closed, then realized it had been hours since I checked the rink thermostat. I knew I had to take a look before I left for the night. 35 degrees, not great, not terrible. I adjusted the target temperature and waited until the system started pumping more coolant beneath the ice. I headed back to the door, but stopped at the hallway to the restrooms. There was someone standing at the end of the hall. I was startled, but more than anything, I just wanted to go home. "We're closed," I said. "I have to lock up now." He didn't move. "Do you need to use the restroom first?" I thought maybe he wasn't feeling well. Concession food can be rough on some people's stomachs. He turned to face me. The hall was dark except for the exit light over my head, which cast a dim red glow over his face. His head hung low and he wore a vacant expression, like he was asleep on his feet. Then he lifted his head to look at me. I didn't say a word. The more I stared, the more the features of his face seemed to be out of place, like it was just a mask. His eyes looked cloudy in the red light, but I could tell that he was looking at me. Then an intense shiver came over me. It was an ice-cold chill that pierced to my core. It had to be fear, but I wrapped my arms close to warm up. Then he was gone. I looked behind me, then back down the hall. There was no one there. I didn't stick around to check the restrooms. I got out of there as soon as I could. The next day, I told my boss about the man in the hall. He listened quietly and took a while before speaking.
What did he look like?
He asked. I described the lifeless face and the dull eyes, feeling a hint of a chill just recalling it.
And he was dressed a little outdated?
I thought about it. The man wore a suit, but maybe the lapels were a little too big. The pants flared a bit wide. That wasn't what concerned me at the time, though. Maybe so. My boss nodded.
Did the ice rink go above freezing yesterday?
It did, I said, but I fixed it before leaving last night.
We've got to keep an eye on it.
He said. Then he left for his office.
You'll see people like that around here. It'll be okay. Just keep an eye on the rink.
I looked over to the concession counter. My coworker had been listening. She only met my eyes for a second, then she went about her work. We'd be opening soon, and the heat was sure to drive a crowd our way. It's a brutal summer, and when the temperatures rise so high, everybody blasts their AC. It puts a serious strain on the power grid. Yesterday, we tipped the meter too far. The power went out across downtown. My boss went out to fire up the generator, telling me to make sure nobody went near the ice. At first, customers sat in the dining area and waited to see if the power would return. I couldn't blame them. The air was still cool, and anything was better than going back out into the heat. As the day went on, though, the chill faded and there was no point in sticking around. Our customers left, and it was just me and my coworker. Our boss clearly wasn't going to get generator up and running anytime soon, so I hoped that he would just let us go. My coworker went outside to ask. The air was starting to turn muggy, so I went to check the thermostat. It had a backup battery, so I could at least see the rink's temperature, 40 degrees. It was only going to climb from there. With my back to the ice, I felt something move just behind me. The stench of spoiled meat returned, thick in the humid air. My legs quivered, but I ran for the door. I was in a hurry, so I decided to cut through the ice rink. That was a stupid idea. I started slipping immediately and fell hard on my back. I looked up into a crowd of dead faces. There were dozens of them, dead, bloody bodies, all standing on the ice. Their faces were frozen in horrified, silent howls, while some looked as if they had been beaten or crushed. They all watched me with pale, cloudy eyes. I heard myself scream, and I scrambled for footing. I fell again and again, trying to crawl across the ice. Finally, I reached the other side and bolted to the exit. As I pushed through the doors, I could see that my coworker's car was gone. She had the right idea. I didn't stop to lock up. I took today off and called my boss to tell him what happened. He didn't question any of it. He seemed to know what was going on, so I asked for an explanation.
Do you know the gravel lot down the street?
He asked.
There used to be an office building there. It collapsed years ago when I was just a kid. A lot of people died.
I had never heard the whole story before. Apparently, there were so many casualties. The local morgue was overwhelmed. They had to store bodies at the ice rink to keep them cool. They were there on the ice for days until they could be moved or identified. Now I understand what I saw, but that doesn't make it any better. I don't want to go to work tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Reddit stories.